Greetings and welcome to Star Trek Discovery Pod, a sometimes funny, trying to be smart podcast covering all things new and classic Trek. Boop on the nose. I'm your captain, Myrriah Gossett. With me on the view screen, we have
Clyde Haynes. Happy to be here.
And your favorite sack of chemicals, Paul G. Paul G.
Paul G.
Paul G. Anyone out there? Hello,
Hello. Tonight we are going to talk about the 6th and 7th episodes of season 4 of Lower Decks. But first, I thought we should celebrate for a moment because Prodigy finally has a new home.
Oh, does it? I didn't realize that.
They announced yesterday, within the last 2 days. I am so jet lagged. I don't know what time is anymore. But Prodigy has been saved. It's going to be on Netflix. So the first season will be available on Netflix later this year. And then the second season will be releasing in early 2024. So you guys, everyone did it. Hashtag save Prodigy worked. We saved Prodigy.
We did it. Yay.
Yes.
We did it.
Yay.
I'm really excited about it. I'm glad we get to finally see the second season because I know so many people who have worked really hard on it. And if you want to see a third season, because that is not guaranteed on a Netflix show, they love a 2 season and then they're out. Although hopefully things change now with the new writers agreements. But when it drops, it's a really good idea to just go ahead and binge your whole way through it. Definitely watch all of the episodes, and same thing when the second season comes out. But huzzah, very exciting. We have more Prodigy for us in the future. Yes. So tonight we are going to talk about the 6th and 7th episodes, the Parith Ferengi's Heart Place, as well as a few badgies more. We'll start with the 6th episode and then we'll move into 7. But first, let's just have a couple of reminders. Paul, where can people find information about us or share the show?
Well, you can see or hear or something our podcast at Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. All links are at StarTrekPod.co. And if you love our content or like our content or tolerate our content, please consider joining our Patreon for just $2 per episode at patreon.com/StarTrekPod.
Indeed, we love it when you join us over on Patreon. And Clyde, if people are watching us tonight live on YouTube, how can they interact in the chat?
Well, if you want us to read your comment or just let us know what you're thinking, then type capital P, capital O, capital D, capital pod in the chat, and we will take a look at your comment, your question, your musings. And then when we get to that special part of the show where we want to know your overall thoughts of the episode, just type a capital H, capital F, capital HF in the chat, and we'll take a look at your ponderings.
Those sweet, sweet ponderings. But I think it might be time for us to dig into some messages from the menagerie, but we know that all falls into some hot freaks.
Hot freaks! That deep V is just so deep.
It's the deepest of V's on that outfit.
It takes a special man to not only have the deep V, but to just let the chest hair out like that. I'm not that guy. Sorry.
It was a time and an era, and I appreciate it.
If we can get enough money to go on a Star Trek cruise, I will wear the deep V.
Yes.
It will be
so patrons, if you want to see pictures of Paul in a deep V, get all your friends to join us.
In a Riker deep V, I would do that. I would do that. That's how much I'm committed to the cause.
Committed to the cause. I appreciate that.
I'm going to tell you right now, it's a Kobayashi Maru. It's a no-win scenario for everyone.
I mean, that takes Free the Nipple to a whole different and challenging place. But okay.
And there will be people who go like, oh, and Paul is a human.
And you have to do the chair sit too, though, with it, you know.
I will do all. I'll do. It goes. Oh, Paul is a human person, right? And I go. It is. It's out there, everyone. It's out there. You know, stretch goal.
stretch goal noted for the Patreon. I'm going to add that as a giving level.
Yeah, there we go.
$100 a month. Paul will wear a deep V at every convention, con, and conference that we speak at.
Like literally, I said Star Trek cruise, but I will.
I'm going to up the ante, you know.
There, take one for the pod. Thank you.
Okay, some messages from the menagerie. I'll read the first one and then I'll let y'all jump in.
Sure.
We have I didn't get the person's name. Hang on. Carmen says,
Yes.
this was my least favorite episode of the season. However, I like the cold open. The updated portable Genesis device made me laugh. I'm so over self-sabotaging, angry. Mariner, enough already. Also, the forced Tendi Rutherford fake romance really fell flat and was borderline offensive. Although the scene where Milimo saves the day was pretty funny, it was fun to see Captain Freeman save the day with the contract. Unfortunately, overall, this episode was a disappointment and fell flat. Clyde, you want to read the next one?
Sure. Karen Chu says, I agree. I don't know why we suddenly went back to the self-sabotaging Mariner, although I guess we all know we don't change behaviors overnight. I did love that Quint told Mariner he loved her and she needed to find out why she was really bothering her to cause her to return to this behavior. That was a nice moment. I did love Jack's and I'm handsome, I'm the whole package wink. Edited for opinion after subsequent watches. I've enjoyed this episode more and more, though some of this still stands regarding Mariner. So while it's not my favorite, I enjoyed it, and it's a solid middle of the road episode.
Paul, next one.
James Worm, how many bars worth of gold plate platinum did Captain Freeman drop in the trash?
I wonder
question.
How much. And then Keen says, this wasn't my favorite of the season, but I really enjoyed seeing Rom and Lita again. This was our first official look at how Rom was doing as Nagas. Plus, I wanted to see more cop landlords.
Yo, cop landlords was actually kind of funny.
It was pretty great. Clyde, what was your hot freak of this episode?
So this was an interesting episode. I'm gonna have a slightly different hot freak on this. So yeah, the Mariner self-sabotaging was a little bit annoying, but it's different when everybody else knows what she's doing.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody's buying it. Like, I think before we got this Mariner who was constantly self-sabotaging and nobody knew she was self-sabotaging. Now she just looks kind of ridiculous. And I'm hoping that this is like the last of it, because she's starting to, now everybody else has understood. Now she understands. And it really does put Ransom in an interesting light. I can't just get over how far he's come, at least in my opinion, from like the first few episodes to where he is now.
Is he like Shaw to you now?
I wouldn't go that far. Probably if I had to choose one of them, I might choose Rutherford or Ransom. So here's the other thing. I actually enjoyed this whole Tendi Rutherford thing. Because to me, it's this meet cute between two friends who think they're just friends. And there are these moments where they haven't quite turned the light on. I was hoping that this was going to be an episode where they started to realize their feelings for each other. But kind of on the rewatch, when they go back and they get dressed up, and Rutherford is like, I'm looking for a less, like a word that's less intense than captivating. Like, to me, he's starting to see her differently. And I was hoping that we were going to get a little bit of progress there. I'm ready for them to go ahead and try this thing, even if it's a disaster. I'm ready for this Rendy romance.
Yeah, we'll talk about the Rendy romance a little bit later. Paul, what's your hot freak of the episode?
So, like, ever since like Deep Space Nine, or actually Next Generation, I always feel like Ferengi episodes are very difficult to do. They're I feel like, I don't want to say the weakest episodes, but they're episodes where I go like, am I not interested in this as much? And some of them are very downright embarrassing. So if you grade it on that curve, it's not so bad. It's not so bad. Like like it's a difference between like Ferengi episodes, like as a Ferengi culture versus like specific characters. Like my favorite episodes tend to be ones where like like with what you call it, Nog,
Mhm.
But anyway, like that aside, like I felt like structurally this was like four different C plots as opposed to A,
Mm.
B, and C. I feel like the focus wasn't there. So I didn't really know exactly what to focus on. I felt like individually as C plots, sure, they're fine. Like I didn't really mind the Mariner stuff. I didn't necessarily like it, but like it was like a C plot, so in my mind, so it didn't really bug me. It really bugs me when that becomes an A plot kind of thing, if that means anything. Like I thought there was a nice time for the captain to shine,
Mhm.
But so there you go.
Yeah. I mean, to me, so I think it's interesting. Like, so like last season, this episode 6 was also another like kind of Deep Space Nine referential episode. So I thought that was interesting. It kind of lands in the same place in their season. I think for me, I enjoyed this as a bit of like our last little breath before we start really driving into the back half of the season and what's going to be our like finale plot points. I agree. I don't think any of the major plot points of this episode were that major. Like, I definitely agree with you, Paul. I think they were trying to make the Mariner and then the Tendi and Rutherford romance kind of our AB interchangeably. Um, but there wasn't much really moving things forward. I thought it was really fun. And I will say, like, on second watch, like this episode had so many more like laughs per minute for me
Mhm.
than episode 7. So while there was like so much, and we'll talk about it, there's so much that I really liked about episode 7, but um while the plot might have been thinner in 6, it definitely had jokes. Like
Fair enough. It's a gag episode,
yeah,
like
I mean,
one
they're
liners. Yeah.
playing, yeah, a ton of one-liners. I mean, I wrote down so many. It's like even within the first opener, we have the horniest and least committed crew in the Federation, so we don't have any married couples.
Yeah.
um,
Okay,
which
so
is good.
interesting thought about that line. I thought it was hilarious.
Mhm.
But is that something that you, when you heard, you're like, "Yep, absolutely, I thought the same thing." I don't know that I noticed that.
I mean, I don't think we noticed it, but I think it's because there's a lack of any attention truly drawn to it in some ways because these are lower deckers. These aren't as like established crew members, but I do think it's interesting because in every other Star Trek series, there is kind of a core romance couple for the most part, right? Like Voyager might be the only other exception, but there's definitely romance plots in that series. But yeah. Anyway, what do y'all like what's your preference, I guess, for a show if there is like a continual romance? Is it the will they, won't they? Is it more of like these camaraderie friendships, or is it seeing these like long, slow burns like Riker and Troy?
Well, I don't believe in love. It's just like chemicals, a sack of chemicals. So like so it's random. But well, I would say it really depends on how it's formulated. Like for example, I would hate for like Liz and for in 30 Rock, Liz and Jack to get together.
Right.
Like I think that's a what you call it, a friendship, you know,
Hmm.
and it can stay that way. There are tons of shows where you're like, oh,
The
when are they
Jack
going
and
to get
Diane's of it all, right? Like,
exactly, and that's good too. Like it all. It's just a matter of like if you make it gross or if you make it cool.
right.
That's what it comes down to. Like like I don't think Tendi and Rutherford have a lot of chemistry. Like because here's the thing, and I'm gonna say it, and you guys can let me know if you agree or not. Both of them exude sidekick character energy. They're just sidekick energy, like like Boimler and Mariner, they're main character energy. And when you put the two sidekicks together, I'm like going like I don't know what I'm really watching. I don't. They're not going to do anything cool. They're just going to be like mildly funny and slightly annoying. Did I say that out loud? I love Tendi. I love Tendi. I'm not the biggest fan of Rutherford, but like he's not much. But I just don't feel like they're captivating together.
So, I mean, I like a balance, right? So I like the idea of having friends. So like characters who are just friends. And so to me, I get that in Boimler and Mariner, right? Like these are two that I want them to be friends. I don't want them in a relationship. I want them to cheer each other on. I want them to be there to help the other commiserate their failed relationships or their heartbreaks or their triumphs. Like I want them to be friends. But I also like to see kind of the Corey and Topangas, right? They get together, maybe they break up for a little bit, but ultimately they last, right? I'm less excited about the ongoing will they, won't they forever. Like that gets annoying to me after a while. If to use another one, it's kind of, I also like the ones who are in constant pursuit. The How I Met Your Mothers, right? Like we know eventually they're going to find love, but they don't. And then also with How I Met Your Mother, spoiler alert, the unsuspected couple when you got the Robin and Barneys to get together, right? Like I didn't see this coming, but it turns out they're opposites and they attract. So I like a balance. So like when we see this crew, in addition to what's going on, we see different things. I thought we got a little bit of that on TNG. I definitely felt like we got that on DS9, where you had like the O'Briens and the Kikos, and you had Bashir, who was constantly after, like you had this different dynamic. Now, as far as Tendi and Rutherford, Paul, I mean, they're friends, and I'm all for friends who then make a great partnership. Like I want them to be friends, and then they take that step to romance, and it works out.
What if you find out, like in season 9, that they've been hooking up since season 1, and it's all on the down low? That would be hilarious.
I would be for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think
Tendi's hot.
Tendi is hot.
Tendi is hot. I do think it's funny or interesting, at least, to see. I think this episode was more of a realization that they didn't realize that they found each other attractive. So I think it's like they have definitely been friends, and I don't know if it will lead to anything, but it was that awkwardness of like, oh, we do know each other are both like attractive people, but do we think this chemistry is actually romantic? And also, do either of them really want a romantic relationship at all, which is another potential option? Because I know we've seen Rutherford date, but we really haven't seen Tendi pursue much in the world of romance. So it's possible that that's not even something she's really interested in. The biggest question, though, I have is, how does Tendi blush pink? I saw this circulating on the internet, and I was like, this is a good question, because I don't think with her green complexion that pink would be the logical choice for a blush tone.
Unless you're assuming that Orion's blood is red.
Right. Like, I don't know what Orion,
like green.
I assumed it's green.
That doesn't make sense.
Or blue. I don't know.
Well, what plus green equals red? Like what color plus green equals red? Does that work out? Oh my God,
color wheel. I don't think you can make red into green.
well, then I don't know. Like maybe she has other She's an Orion. She magic.
Magic. I mean, they're polar opposites of each other on the color wheel, so that's like the big problem, right?
This is why I love Star Trek, because only Star Trek fans can get into this, right? Like this is only a conversation that happens. Like, no offense to the Rick and Morty crowd, but they're not looking at this and going, "Hey, Rick can't do." Like, they're not in the minutia of it. Star Trek fans are going,
"I got
blush."
I
don't know about that.
I just feel like there's a certain privilege of like going like, oh, this is my biology, and so like
I see what you're saying, Paul.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
But I mean, color. Anyway, I was about to go into a deep dive of how like our perceptions of color is through spectrums, and so it's like not. I think that would be universal, but it could not be universal. I don't know.
I think Chuppy has it. Like that maybe their melatonin is green, and
That's true.
and there you go. Thank you, Chuppy.
Way to keep it down for the. Yes, red is a primary color. You cannot make red. Anyway, okay. Moving on from color theory before my very sleepy brain says something real stupid.
Regrettable.
Say it.
No, I just I know I'm getting stuff wrong, and I'm like, man, I paid so much money for a BFA, and how am I using this?
Wow.
Okay, I wanted to ask y'all. So I thought it was hilarious to hear the two different types of travel planning that was happening once they got this assignment that they had to go down to Ferenginar. So you have Mariner who's like, oh, good, this means I have to go to bars and restaurants and casinos and bars and pubs and bars. And then you have Boimler who says, I have to go squeeze an unreasonable amount of activities into the day. And go make an itinerary. What kind of a traveler are you? Are you more of a Mariner or a Boimler?
Oh, that's a good question.
I will say I was read for filth on my own couch about being a Boimler. Part of the reason I'm jet lagged is I just got back from a trip to London, where I did go to a museum pretty much every single day.
So I went to Japan to visit a friend of mine, years back, who was teaching English, and I spent a week with him, and all I did was stay in his apartment, which was very small, and played video games as he went to work and came back, and then we'd go out to eat. And
so you pulled like a Boimler this episode, Boimler.
I literally did the Boimler per this episode. Boimler. So by that, I'm a Boimler.
So I've shown growth. My first trip to London, I was all about work. And so I was there for like 10 days, 2 weeks. And I basically had to force myself to do a little something. But for the most part, I was at work and back at the hotel, And I had this incredibly naive assumption oh, I'll be back. Let me focus on work and my reputation this trip. And the next time we'll get out and loosen up. Well, guess what? It was a long time before I got back to London. So now when I travel, I try to have some balance. And I try to get out, right? I do hit a lot of museums. I do like museums. I like to understand the culture. So for me, it's about museums and food. I'll be honest.
Yeah.
And a nice sightseeing bus trip. Those are the three things that I'm going to lock in. And so I'm trying to figure out okay, what is the food, the local cuisine? Let me hit that. Let me see some of the culture. So a museum, and then let me see the sights, typically from an air-conditioned bus. So I'm probably closer to a Boimler's itinerary. Just try not to overdo it. Because one thing I hate is I hate to come back from a vacation where I think I need a vacation.
Oh yeah, I definitely did that this vacation. So that happened to me. I walked 7 miles a day. I had a good time though. Anyway, also, I will say, apparently, a honeymoon on Ferenginar is a good deal, and also great trash TV. Just thought I would put that note.
This is what I had my blip is that everyone seemed like they were getting a fair deal.
Yeah.
Except for the captain, and so I go that's not the Ferenginar I know, but maybe it's because of Rom's reforms. I don't know. Maybe so it is one of those things where I'm going. Is it canon or not canon? What is it consistent, or is it because of Anyway, go Rom, long live Rom Negus, Grand Negus Rom.
Yes.
Let me tell you what I like. One thing I really like is the table, the meal where you have the chocolate of each other.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god!
And then
the Rutherford with the little finger in his mouth.
Oh yes, but
I laughed so hard.
The idea that you eat and after every bite you have to say something that you find attractive about the other person, and the chair will know if you're telling the truth or not. I'm like, hello, this is the perfect thing you need on a first date. Like, you will find out
A
real quick if
first
this is gonna
date.
work. First date. Like, find out
You
real early.
embellish a little bit on a first date.
I hate that. I love your tie. Like right in there. Let me know. Let me get that honesty right there, day
Sounds like the
one.
next like Netflix bad reality dating show.
Like it cut to
Oh, that is
silence, just like a half hour of silence.
Mhm.
You're just slowly
Mm.
eating a piece of chocolate. Speaking of Ram and Lita, I did want to ask, this was kind of a nice little check-in with those characters that we hadn't seen in a long time. What did y'all think of our of the portrayals and also like where they're at as characters at this point?
I think it's a fine evolution. You know, like Ram
Mhm.
is smart. He's always been smart. He had always had though not a traditional Ferengi acumen for business. He 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 isn't a dummy. He has a alt lobes, as it would.
Mm.
You know, so and I like the fact that Lita is first clerk, like, you know, basically not just a Dabo girl, and you know, and
Mhm.
I think that's great. I like both of their characters, their development.
Yeah, I thought it was nice to see Rom in a role completely devoid of quirk, right? Like, we got to see him really in his own episode stand up on his own,
Mhm.
and then Lita as a partner, like a true partner. And it's like, it's kind of like, where are they now? They're still doing it. And so I thought that was it was kind of a nice hat tip to DS9 lovers.
Yeah, agree. I also like that we got a return to one of our original Lower Decks characters with Quip, who Mariner meets up with, who he seems to be a really good friend and a longtime friend to her. So I think it's interesting when we get to kind of meet some of these characters from Mariner's past and sort of check in where they are seeing these repeated patterns and they are also getting tired of it, which I think is the point. I think, I saw, in the hot breaks, there was quite a lot of chat about being tired of the Mariner self sabotaging, but I think she's over the self sabotaging, but obviously still has some sort of emotional or um, historical trauma around what happens when she moves up in rank and like hasn't been fully revealed to us yet. Because when Quip asks her, like, you need to figure this out, I think she knows what it is, but we just don't know what it is yet as the audience.
I mean, I just assume that she just doesn't want to grow up. Like,
Hmm.
you know,
Mhm.
I mean, she, for all of it, like, does all this great stuff, and on the, ground floor, grassroots, like helping everyone. But like, as you get more power, as you get more responsibility and more impact, like, you get to do that less. It's like when your platform increases, you get to say less in
Hmm.
some ways. And so and she doesn't like that idea of like that curtailing of her freedom,
Hmm.
despite the fact that she'll have more impact. And that's how I see it. Like, you know, and I see it all the time. Like, you know,
I,
uh,
I'll say I see it similarly, but slightly different. I feel like
well,
Mariner's been hurt.
That's what I'm
Um,
wondering. Is like there seems to be a really deep seated hurt.
yeah, like she's mentioned a couple times, like she's expecting her officers, like when she gets promoted, she's expecting her officers to kind of bust her back down. It's almost like now
yeah,
that you've been promoted, there's more expectation, and now you need to conform and you need to be just like this. Like the thing that got you to the promotion, now change all that and be a carbon copy of what we expect. And Ransom is going, no, be you. Like, give me more of who you are, just in a slightly more mature. And she's not quite ready to accept that this is different. Like this Cerritos is different and this leadership is different. She's waiting for somebody to hurt her again.
it's so interesting, Clyde, because like you and I come at from some such different directions.
Mhm.
Because I go like, oh, like, what are the odds of like all the times that she's been promoted and knocked down, that she just happened to have an executive officer that was just a jerk to her? Or is it more likely that she was just a real brat about it, and then, like, and then blame them? Like, it's like they say, like, if all your exes are crazy, there is one common denominator.
Well, I wondered then if it's a little bit of from column A and column B, right? Like it's perhaps like early on there was someone who did, kind of push her down and create unrealistic expectations of her, and that resulted in her not succeeding. And so once she didn't succeed, she just stuck herself into a constant spiral of self-sabotage because she said, oh, like the one time I thought I could do this, everyone just
Maybe like I just remember the conversation with her parents in the season in the pilot, right? She's had this discipline problem.
Yeah.
And we love her for that. I'm not saying that this is a bad thing, but like, and I'm not saying Starfleet has all the best people all the time. I'm just saying it's really easy when maybe I'm just blaming Mariner because I hate disobedience. I don't know. Maybe I'm the bad guy. Maybe I'm the bad guy.
No.
I'm a big believer in fit, right? Like
culture fit.
Culture fit and like style, right? Like you might want to change jobs because it's more money, but have you really thought about like what that culture fit is, right? Like if you are a t-shirt and ripped jeans type of person and you now are joining an organization that's a suit and tie, that might not be a great culture fit for you, and you might really struggle. So I think the thing that I look at this is Cerritos is a bit of a band of, it's the island of misfit toys, and it works. And so it feels like for Mariner, this is home, right? Like if she was on another ship, I don't know that it would work. And so she's used to being on these other ships that are way more formal, but her style seems to work. And it's about your team. She works with Tendi and Boimler and Rutherford, right? And now T'Lyn, who I'm just realizing we didn't see in this episode at all.
Yeah, we haven't seen her for these last 2 eps, but this is interesting commentary from Miss Powell family. Mariner probably was in the Dominion War. I wonder if the Oberth class mention is a clue. I also then wonder if the one time she was in charge, perhaps something really devastating happened, and so she's afraid of that potential.
So interesting. I just chalk it up for that she's immature, and you guys go like, she's damaged. Something happened. There had to be.
Fine. Nicole agrees with you. She's like, Mariner needs to grow up. The storyline has been going on for 3
Nicole,
seasons.
thank you very much. Ooh, you and I are best friends now.
I mean, Paul, you kind of hit on it though, right? Like it's like when somebody comes to you and they're like, "Yeah, no, man, my ex was just crazy." I'm a little hesitant, to like be like, "Was she like she was just crazy?" Like that's what it is. Like you happen to date someone who was just crazy, and more trying to think of the nuances. What was it about that situation that either touched her in a place that was emotionally raw and triggering, or what was it about your situation that brought out the crazy, right? Or maybe the third option is that she just was crazy, and then how do you attract these crazy people in a repetitive fashion? But I kind of want to give some more nuance to just like Mariner's, immature and rebellious and needs to grow the blank up,
Man, it's tough. It's tough. Like everyone, not everyone can be like, what's, who's awesome from the very beginning. Do we have an awesome character like who's
Jordy?
Okay. Moving on.
I mean, in some senses, you could think that Riker was awesome from the very beginning.
I don't know. He has those dad issues, right?
I mean, you have to have growth in order for a character to be interesting, right?
True.
I guess, yeah.
Speaking of people though,
hence I'm so boring. Hence, thank you, everyone. I'll be here all week.
Speaking of people who are not prepared for their jobs, this admiral was not getting it done, and luckily Freeman was there. I liked seeing Freeman succeed, but that was like, dang, if this was the admiral y'all sent, like, no.
But that is Star Trek, right? For some reason, in
these
most
admirals
cases,
are so inept.
they're so bad, right?
They're
every admiral that shows up, you just like,
out of touch. That's a good point. Yeah.
How did you get this job? Like, why are you so bad at your job?
Yeah. Very strange.
I think what it is that and someone said this. They go like, when you think of Starfleet, you think of this is in a show, the captain is is what you are remembered for, not the admiral. Admiral is it's like
Where
that.
you go to slowly retire.
Yeah, name an admiral that you respect. I can't name one. I can't even say Admiral Kirk.
Vance.
Admiral Vance.
I do
Okay.
like
Discovery.
Vance. Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, there's a whole time where all we kept saying was
He was
Vance is sus.
Mhm.
There was a whole theme for us for like a
Admiral
season.
Mansplainer. That's right, Choopy. That's it. Admiral Mansplainer. I love it. Yeah.
Let's see here. Okay. I did think, the Starfleet experience with the theme song was adorable and very funny. I'm glad Quimp checked Mariner. And then I thought the Dr. Miglimo thruple moment was hysterical.
Okay, I just gotta say, I'm not a Miglimo fan. Like every time Miglimo shows up, I'm just like, what are we doing here?
Oh, that's funny because I like Miglimo, but it could also be my fondness for Paul F. Tompkins, who voices Miglimo. So it's like a little hard for me to say.
So imagine this. Let's say, imagine, and you have the basis, right? You go Galaxy class starship, like a flagship, the best counselor, Deanna Troy. Now imagine downgrading all the way to serious class. What does that counselor look like?
He looks like Miglimo.
Fair point. Fair point.
Don't have to throw up in my mouth twice. Also made me laugh really hard. Yep. That I don't think there is a back end on the deal about IP. Also really funny. And then some other random things. The Federation Starship charcuterie board that's in the opening of them talking about the meeting. I need that immediately from Paramount.
Sure.
Also, the Ferengi themed drinking helmet where the beer cans are held in those very enormous ears. And then I'm glad we still got Boimler screams at the very end, because is it an episode of Lower Decks without a Boimler scream?
I think my favorite Ferengi nod was the monument to lost profits.
Yeah.
I thought and Mariner goes yeah, well, for you Ferengi keeping it on brand, like so much loss, and I go oh, I love that.
It was pretty funny. Anything else about this episode before we move on to the next one?
No, I think we're good. I think everyone feels like this is a good enough or less than good enough episode.
Yeah, it's a funny episode. Did the plot do anything to really move me in any particular way? Not extensively, but I still enjoyed it, and it was a great watch. Okay, well, then I think it might be time for us to dive into yet another edition of Hot Freaks! Hot Freaks! Time for a second round of Hot Freaks. Let's see, messages from the menagerie. We have Carmen with, this episode was jam-packed with laughs when we learned the ships are being collected, not destroyed. I was glad to learn that. And well, Peanut Camper.
Yeah. Kyung, I wasn't expecting the AI redemption episode, but it worked. Maybe Badgie saw the koala. I love the koala. I wonder who is willing to collect the ships and why.
Karen says, I enjoyed this one more than I first thought. And there were some great human names: Meat Pipe, Sack of Chemicals, along the lines of Ugly Bags of Water. Aha. The ships are not being destroyed, but who? Why? Goodgie must live with the shadow of Badgie hanging over him. Okay, the weathering the shuttle is very pronounced, and it reminds me of the TNG Alone Decks episode where Geordi and Tarek were weathering that shuttle for the mission.
Interesting. And then finally from Leslie, finally the Peanut Hamper redemption arc comes at last. Okay, Paul, what did you think about this episode?
Well, I like the episode. I feel like it's a hat on a hat on a hat, because I would be totally fine with just a Badgie episode and something else, or an Argus, or Peanut Camper. It's all it's all, because we know how much we love Peanut Camper, and it's really important that they get their own spotlight. And I feel like this one, Peanut Camper was hardly there.
Yeah, I mean, I get the hat on a hat thing. I think for me, this episode, the successful parts are the continual world building within the world that Lower Decks has done. Because while I enjoy all the references, seeing our recurring characters of this world to me was really satisfying. So seeing Artemis, seeing Peanut Camper, seeing, I feel we had a couple more, and I was trying to remember, but. Yeah, I mean, I overall enjoyed this episode. It's obviously moving us into this back half and getting us where we need to go to figure out what's kind of going on with these different ships. But this episode for me, while really heavy on kind of tying up some loose ends and having some fun references, also didn't have as much character development with our core crew as I think I would have liked after last week's episode.
It was very plotty,
very plotty, less character driven.
And what in Silence of the Lambs, Anthony Hopkins is only on screen for 20 minutes, and he won an Oscar, right? And I felt like Peanut Camper was not on the screen like this, but it. And I felt like it wasn't that worthy of a. I wanted some Silence of the Lambs, because Peanut Camper deserves that.
Clyde, thoughts?
I actually like Peanut Camper more in this episode than ever before. The redemption arc, I'm gonna say, worked for me. But I'm probably a sucker for someone finding their going through the redemption, going back to their family and being like, hey, I actually like this. It worked for me. I thought it was a little bit weird with Boimler and Tendi just allowing Agamas to kind of run amok.
Sure.
And going, the confidence in which they moved was let's just see where this goes.
I know, it was
kind of fascinating to me.
Yeah.
Interesting to see Boimler go from I cannot make a mistake to just being willing to be I guess I'm just gonna go along for this ride because I really need this information.
With this maniacal, that could subjugate a planet in once the coastal studies fell. That's right. I mean, it's really interesting. What I thought the episode probably needed was Peanut Camper to have her speech.
I would have liked to have heard the whole thing.
Yeah, I would have liked to hear the Peanut Camper speech.
Clyde is dying. Paul texted me today and was like, we should just keep saying Peanut Camper instead of Peanut Hamper until Clyde breaks.
I'm not. I'm just going to let it go. I was like, all right.
I know. I was like, you're too polite to be like, why do you keep saying camper?
I mean, listen.
I had all
as a person who nicknames almost everyone and everything, if you want to nickname Peanut Hamper Peanut Camper, then I'm gonna let it go.
She does enjoy the outdoors, so it's just be a rebrand.
But I had all planned. I was going what are you saying, Paul? Peanut Camper,
nope.
And you go it's Peanut Hamper. I goes, what am I saying? Peanut Camper. Yeah, it's Peanut Camper. I had it all worked out. It's very Family Guy.
Never gonna happen. I'm gonna let you roll.
It's Myrriah breaking.
Well, it's because I keep watching Clyde's face as you're saying it, and I'm like, he's never gonna say something.
I'm not. I'm just thinking. The first few times, I'm like, okay. The first time I'm thinking, all right, that was a slip, and the second time I'm thinking, am I hearing this wrong? So I'm listening, going. Maybe I'm hearing the enunciation wrong. On my AirPods not working. So it was gonna be a while before I was and I would have caught you off air, been like, "Hey, Paul, did you know?"
I could just already hear all the comments on YouTube being like, "Why do they keep saying Peanut Camper?" Anyway,
no, but actually, I like this. This one. For someone who has struggled with Peanut Hamper for 4 seasons or 3 seasons or whatever it was when we were introduced to her, this one kind of worked for me, right? And oddly enough, where normally Heather Donahue it's like I'm like, what's happening? Did not bother me once.
Mm.
And I was like her voice actually, I was like, oh, it's chill. Like, welcome to the crew.
Yeah, I did kind of like the idea that rehab and redemption is possible, although like I'm not one for prisons at all on a personal note. But I did think it was funny that the idea that all of these computers have like a standard prison yard where there's like basketball and like group therapy and like gardening happening. I found that to be very funny. And then I agree. I would have liked to have heard a little bit of her speech, although I did find it compelling when she's like, "Oh, as we were like pretending to write this, I realized it was true," and that she went home. I did. It's interesting because both essentially all of the artificial intelligence in this episode eventually chooses the good side of things, which I thought was interesting commentary on
the blue
AI
light
beings.
side.
The blue light, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Like in some ways, like there's that part where I go like, oh, if all the humans were not a part of it, would it just have gotten like resolved itself? It's kind of like Raiders of the Lost Ark. If Indy just didn't do anything,
Yeah.
the Nazis would be killed and and blah blah blah. So in this particular case, where our characters was the lower decks really necessary for any of them?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, this is also interesting. So WYSIWYG says, it's the title of this episode is a reference to The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. And WYSIWYG says, would have loved to have had a holodeck Western motif to match the Rutherford as the man with no name.
Sure. Like a few dollars more. Yeah, I can definitely a few badges more. I get it. Like I was hoping for that, but I guess they're playing with the split personality badgie kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. I did notice, I think this episode had quite a few extra dollars spent on animation because there's quite a few frames that had like much more texture, and I thought all the exteriors looked really great.
Like the badgies look crazy.
The badgies look insane.
Yeah, like that it did not look like the same art style in some ways, in a good way. It feel like it just to go.
It reminds me. Oh yeah, go ahead.
I think the voice acting was great on Badgie too.
Mm-hmm.
Like Kenneth, right? That Kenneth from 30 Rock.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, this is really good. It's crazy.
Yeah, you could definitely tell like the differences between all of the characters that he was playing. So I thought that it was really successful in that way. And the Badgie animations, when it would do the close-ups on his face, I found it kind of similar to like when you would get those like villain shots in like animes and stuff like that. So I was this is really fun to play with stylistically.
Or me in the morning, just like just like come on, Paul, happy face.
Where was I going? What did you think of the hug as a tactic by Rutherford to try to get Badgie to not kill the entirety of the Cerritos?
I mean, sure. It's one of those things. Once again, I believe that the actions are very immaterial. So sure, why not? Like Rutherford has tried everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like what else was he gonna do? I feel like it's a little lazy, maybe, but it was fine for the context of what it is.
Yeah, I mean, eventually it isn't. I think the episode eventually lands somewhere interesting with Badgie's character, with the idea of like, oh, once I now have infinite knowledge and infinite power, I see that there is no point in like killing people and violence, and that like I feel like I wrote something down that's more eloquent than what I'm about to say, but now I don't remember what it was.
I have it right here. It's Myrriah says kill equal bad, no good.
Exactly. So Badgie eventually choosing that violence is not the answer. I thought that violence is illogical, but it was also like the void of good. Yeah, this also doesn't make sense. I think I've just fully reached to the point of jet lag that I don't have words anymore.
No, your brain has reached 9.9. That's it. You're
9.9. Right. But what I was trying to say is that with intelligence and thought and logic and empathy and good, you eventually get to the idea that violence is not an actual answer to solve any problems.
I
That's
don't
what
know,
I was
man.
trying to say.
I haven't seen the koala yet. I mean, I've seen representation of the koala, but like maybe you get that when you see the koala. I feel like
Or if you go to visit Black Mountain.
that's right. That's right. But if you I don't know. I think I think you get attacked by a dog or like a pit bull, like like violence is an answer. I think I think that's an answer.
That is a answer.
I think to me, this was an interesting take on kind of the father of AI technology and their relationship to their creations, right? And it's kind of like if Noonien Soong would have treated Lore a little bit differently, could he have changed Lore's behavior, right? If he was a little bit more kind of welcoming and saying, "Hey, you're not a mistake. I didn't make a mistake and then try and recreate data to fix all the things I've done with you, but just hug Lore." Would Lore have been different? It was an interesting conversation to me, and then the answer was kind of like, no, the hurt is the hurt, and then you got the separate entities, and
It's so
and
interesting.
then to transition to what Myrriah said is, now that I see the whole picture, my behavior doesn't make sense.
Is there like to your point, I never saw the Badgie Lore connection before, but like it's kind of there a little bit, right? And so like to your question, if Sung did something different, would Lore be different? And I think the answer is probably no.
Interesting.
Well,
does this come down then to that question of like nature versus nurture?
Yeah,
right. And it is usually a combination of the two.
Well, I suppose it comes down to, do you believe in free will or not? In the sense,
favorite question of Star Trek.
That's right. And so because like Lore, he at least the way the lore tells us, like he became the way he was because he just felt better, because he was better, he was smarter, he was faster, he'd live forever, blah blah blah, all these things, and the things that humans valued, like he didn't value as much because he was better. Like I have other, not to go on a tangent, but like here we go on a tangent. I have this question that I ask people all the time. I go, would you rather have the ability to teleport or infinite money? And I get a lot of answers. Do you guys have an answer before like I proceed?
I mean, I want to say the ability to teleport, but I feel like the better answer is infinite money.
I'm going with infinite money. I mean, teleportation is cool, and I would enjoy it. But if I got infinite money, then I can hire somebody to teleport.
Then we are friends. Then that's why we're friends, because the infinite money is obviously the right answer. But that said, what normally goes like, oh, I pick teleport, and I would say to them, like, what how you, let's say you go to Paris, like you'll still need to eat, you still need, how would you pay for that? And invariably, like 99.4% of the time, people say, well, I could just teleport in the bank and take my, and then I'd go, because it's a trap, because Paul is a trap,
Paul is a trap.
and I go, oh, so once you have power, morals go out the window. And then they go like, we're not friends anymore, unfriend, boom. but yeah. And I've only got one person who said, yep, that's the case. I am now a god. And that person
is still your friend.
because they're honest about it, right? And so in this way, like Lore goes like, I am a god amongst you. I am better by his. And so in that way, I don't know if nurture is going to help that. Data had very little nurture, right? He, in that way, it's just a matter of there's a choice that was made where, because of my, because you're better, do you see yourself as deserving to rule, or do you see yourself as more responsible to serve?
Yeah, it is interesting though, because he essentially is like, oh, I'm not gonna do all these murderous things in this universe, but I'm gonna go to an uncreated universe and create a
Sure.
universe.
Yeah.
So, like, what will the Badgie created universe eventually look like?
Like the Marvel universe. Boom. Just like that. Yeah.
that
No.
is that is the answer.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. With infinite money, with infinite smarts comes infinite. I don't know. But like that whole storyline was kind of like it's like the Ark of the Covenant. Like okay, well, did anything really happen that was necessary? I felt like all three of those things, like Artemis, Camper. I'm sorry, Clyde, and Badgie. I felt like they all deserved an arc in a way that like it would impact our characters, and I don't think that happened.
Yeah, I feel like this episode, I mean, we still essentially have Peanut Hamper and Artemis on the table, right? Like they still exist within the universe. And now we have Badgie as like a Q sort of entity within the Lower Decks universe as well. So I don't know if this will be the last time we see all of these characters. I feel like this episode was to tell us all that we've all been wrong all season and none of these people are the ones in charge of the ship.
Yeah, that's what I think too. I think this is like the psych.
Yeah.
So if you're gonna do that, it better be so amazing. The person who you bring, like if you're gonna throw down that glove, that bath glove, I want it to be. It's the Packlets again. Red alarm.
Well, I think what's interesting is we all kind of thought or questioned, what if it's Badgie and Peanut Hamper? And what they did was they gave us a Badgie, Peanut Hamper / Artemis episode, and none of them are involved,
right?
Which was interesting. And so to me, this episode was interesting for like the last 3 minutes where we understood, oh, they are alive, they didn't get destroyed, they were just taken, and it's not Artemis, Badgie, or Peanut Hamper. So now there's a big question of who is the big bad in this one, what's going on. That was the interesting thing. I don't know that I needed anything that happened before the first 3 minutes to get me there.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because at the beginning I was like, oh, we're setting this up to be it's Badgie. And then like immediately they're like, oh, we're leaving it so you might still think it could potentially be Badgie because they show up to collect all these materials, but it could also not be Badgie. And then by the end, we're like, it's absolutely none of these things. So if you had to make a guess of who is stealing all of these ships and crews,
T'Lyn.
Oh,
I haven't seen her.
Clyde, if you are right, oh my God, you're getting a beer.
Take it.
That would be some like some Ambo Jitsu's type of shit.
Cheapy mentions William Boimler has not been seen yet. That is true.
Yeah, no, like I don't know why William Boimler had it all, sorted out, right? Or as I like to call it, the original Boimler. like he's on the Titan, right? And life is all good on the Titan.
Supposedly. I need to like rack my brain and the internet a little bit more if there has been any plots previously that include a species that collects ships
like a menagerie of sorts.
Yeah, like
a menagerie of ships.
A fully Starfleet menagerie, and who would want that?
Shippercherie.
A shippercherie.
Like a ship collector, like a
shipsherie.
A Geordie
if menagerie has the root word man, right? Then it's a shipcherie. Or I've just destroyed everybody with that logic.
But like oftentimes ships are referred to in the female, so is it a menagerie?
See, we're just
menagerie.
What?
Like it would be cool if it's Section 31, Chupi. I think Chupi, because like we have not seen Lower Decks Section 31.
What if Michelle Yeoh makes an appearance in the last couple of episodes, and this does
I'm
have
doing a
something to
cartwheel.
do
That'd be
with
Wow,
great.
Section
wow,
31.
that would be very good, very good.
Because I will say I read an interview with Mike McMahon today that said he has some pretty big surprises for the last 2 episodes of the season. And the last couple, I mean, we've had appearances from Jonathan Frakes and Marina DeSertis. And so I think, they tend to drop some of the bigger cameos in the last 2 episodes. So, I mean, I would love if it was Michelle Yeoh.
Avery Brooks.
Avery. I mean, he's always
I
said,
know.
but
But what if he said no, but this was the thing that he decided to do?
I mean, it would be really wild, and so many other fans would be so mad about it, but I
Yeah,
would
they
love
would.
it.
Get it,
They'd
get
be
it.
so mad, but
They would be so mad, but it would be pretty incredible.
mhm.
I mean, it could be prophets. The prophets have come in and need to have
I don't know, like
something.
it just comes down to it comes down to this. Whoever it is, if it makes sense that the ship design is correct, I'd be fine. But if it's someone who that we know and it doesn't fit the ship face design or whatever, like the white ship, then I'm gonna be a little irritated. It's got to be good now. You made it so it has to be really good. Not you per se, but
Yeah, the setup has made it. I have faith that it'll be pretty good. They haven't disappointed me on a finale in all of the seasons yet. So,
So they're overdue. Is that what you're saying? Way to
I
go!
mean,
Way to go!
I'm gonna just jinx the whole thing
You got,
now.
you got London brain now. So
London on the brain. I mean, the English love to colonize and ruin things.
yeah.
I mean, like my brain. Let's see. Anything else to say about this episode? I mean, there were lots of things and jokes that made me also laugh. The koala, the reference back to Black Mountain, which is what Shaq sees when he dies, is the spiritual battleground where the soul went after death, and you must fight 3 faceless apparitions of your father, after which the surviving father makes you eat their heart. Which is also just a wild line that was fun to look up and be like, dang, they really get creative on this show. Yeah, I mean, we had Mariner and Rutherford kind of team up, but not in a way that maybe be like, oh, this is a team up. Do you know what I mean? Like
maybe,
it was like
maybe it's the koala. It's been shown twice so far. It's shown in episode 1 and this episode now.
That's interesting.
Who would you want to voice the koala?
Morgan
Brooks.
Morgan Freeman.
Morgan Freeman.
I mean, is there anyone better than Morgan Freeman?
For the voice of a god?
Yeah, Gilbert Godfrey.
James Earl Jones.
No, James Earl Jones.
Oh, Gilbert Godfrey. That'd be it. I can't even do it.
Yeah.
Oh, WYSIWYG says it's Boba Fett. It does look a lot like the Boba Fett ship.
Yeah, that does.
It does. It really does.
What if that's the surprise? It's officially finally the Star Trek Star Wars crossover that no one has been asking for.
Literally that no one's asking for. Boba Fett in the Star Trek universe.
Cut to
internet would break.
And he goes, and we're announcing that Disney and Paramount have merged.
I mean, if that happened, I wouldn't put it past them. Like the day that's announced, I'd be like, everyone fear for your IP.
Yes. Oh man. The last thing I need is somebody with a lightsaber on a Star Trek ship. Come on.
No, they can only have batlets. Okay, I feel like that is it for these 2 episodes. Anything else, guys?
I think we're good. Just before we sign off, just remember that if we get enough money,
Paul will wear the deep V.
I'll get the Riker deep V. It starts with the cruise, and I'll just wear it forever on.
Forever and ever on.
Free the nipple, Paul. Free the nipple.
I had to call out the. Oh, go ahead.
Just remember, it's a Kobayashi Maru. Everyone loses.
Everyone loses. Thank you all so much for tuning in with us tonight. If you're with us live, thank you so much for listening to the podcast. If you're in our audio feed, we appreciate you. We will be back next week to talk about episode 8 of Star Trek Lower Decks. You can rate, review on Apple as well as on Spotify. You can visit StarTrekPod.co to find links to our Patreon and places where you can listen. Also, if you check out the show notes, there's links to our merch. You can buy merch.
The
I got a
camper merch.
peanut. Maybe I'll make a peanut camper shirt now.
Oh, that would
We
be
have a peanut hamper shirt. I'll make a peanut camper one. And we have a hot Frank shirt. So, which you can also get in like a variety of other things if you don't want t-shirts. They got sweatshirts, they got mugs, they got, I think the only thing you can't get is like a tapestry. Pretty sure you can get any. You got masks, we got koozies, we got mugs.
Cool.
Get some merch.
Sounds great.
It'll be great. Clyde, where can people find us on the internet as well?
You can find us at Star Trek Pod on X and Instagram, and I'm sure some other places Myrriah has put us on. Thanks to Karen who runs our X. I'm trying to get this right.
Yeah, Twitter, X,
Thanks,
whatever
Karen.
you want to call it. We all know what that is. Yeah, thank you all so much for joining us. We will see you all next time. Live long and prosper. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.